what so many of us struggle with: stress, anxiety, depression, addiction, PTSD, and more. Too often we hear people say they felt alone before discovering the tools of change at Access Consciousness. That is why we created this series of lives to reinforce the message that you are not alone, and in fact, you are a gift to this world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this my Facebook Live of You Are Not Alone. I'm Marilyn Bradford. I'm the founder and creator of Right Recovery for You, and I have three of the amazing Right Recovery for You facilitators with me, Sue and Amy and Lena. And we're going to talk today about some of the tools that we've used or used with our clients and the effects that they've had or the results that they've had. Now, this is not like this tool will create this result, because the person always has choice, but these tools can absolutely create miracles. And we have verbal tools, and we also have what's called the bars. So I'd love you all to start. If someone has a story of change, a story about using the tool with yourself or with another, using verbal clearings or using bars, and what that all created. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome, love. Hi, everyone. I am Sue Cotter, and it's a pleasure to be here today talking specifically on this subject. You are not alone. For me, I'd like to talk about, I'm going to talk about access bars. It's probably about maybe nine years ago that it just starts raining, sorry. About 9 years ago that I found Access. And before that, even though I probably would have come across like a really like outgoing person, inside I was really just very alone and always felt very alone. Very different. And I had so much judgment of myself that I couldn't even see the difference, you know, how different I was. It was always that, like, I was trying to fit in. I was always trying to be part of what everybody else was doing, you know, to look like I was like everybody else and that I wasn't different. And it was pretty a struggle, to be honest, to live. And for me, I suppose when I found the bars, which I just came across it, for me, the first time that I got my bars run, which is the hands-on body process on the head in Access Consciousness, I would have experienced it. And my first time that after I had the session, my first time that I actually couldn't think. I literally couldn't think. I sat outside, you know, after I had the session, and it was so interesting because I was so used to judging myself that I actually sat in my car and I was trying to judge myself. I was trying to go back to thinking or trying to go to the struggle, and I couldn't do it. So I suppose that was really probably the first time. I'm 45 now, so I was 34 at the time. Was probably the first time that I actually had accessed space, as in like free in my head. And I sat there in the car. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And in that moment, I actually did not feel alone.
Cool.
Even though I was sitting in the car on my own, I felt connected.
Awesome.
I didn't feel alone. And then from there, it was like, I don't know what this is, but I would like to have more of this.
You know, I think the bars really facilitate us in letting go of all those crazy thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And that's all in the mind. And the mind is what actually separates us.
Wow.
For me, the bars have just given me such a great sense of space and peace, and it allows me not to be separated. So very cool.
And Marilyn, can I just say as well, something that really, like, I didn't know that I was aware. I actually did not know. When somebody said to me, do you know that you're aware of, energy, aware of thoughts, aware? And I was like, what do you mean aware? I just thought everything in my head, every thought, every feeling was mine. And I had to deal with them all. I had to try and fix them all. I had to try and live with them. And it was just so freeing when somebody said, do you know you're aware? Like, do you know you can pick up on other people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions? And I was like, hang on a second. And I was so used to like trudging and drudging through life that it was like, what? You mean I can have, like, I don't have to do this? I thought that was my job. Like, I thought that's what living was. I genuinely thought that's what living was.
Well, and interestingly, we're looking at tools like verbal tools in the bars, but also the information we get from Access is amazing. Like,
totally.
You're aware. It's not your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Yeah. One of my favorite tools, who does this belong to? Which we think, well, it's mine because I feel it. Well, you pick up, you're feeling happy. You pick up somebody who's really sad. You're walking down, who's crying. Oh, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I wonder why I'm sad. And then you look for something to attach it to.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I must be sad because my neighbor's moving or my dad's in the hospital. And then you buy it as yours and then you're stuck with it. I mean, I've certainly gotten so much relief. Anyway, I think the bars are great.
And that too, like, who does this belong to? Like, Dane Here has a video on YouTube. If you go to Dane Here on YouTube, you'll get a whole load of information from Access, from Dane, and he's actually talking about this tool. And when I heard this tool first, I was like, no, everything is mine, you know? And it was like, no, but like this can't be. And then when I started to use the tool and ask a question, I was like, having all these thoughts, who does this belong to? Is this mine? Return to sender with consciousness attached.
Yeah.
And then I would get like, and I know, like, I tried to figure out how this was working, but then I realized, like, I didn't need to figure that out. I was just getting more free.
Yeah.
And it was simple.
Yeah.
It was actually simple. But I had grown up in an environment where everything was like, it had to be hard, it had to be a struggle, and you had to try and live through that.
Yes. Well, when you learn, you don't have to do that struggle anymore. That was another piece of information from Access, is you can just give up the struggle. Oh, that you don't have to live in the past. That was it. I'm a psychotherapist. I've been one for 30 years. So the idea that you don't have to dredge up the past unless it's actually pertinent in that, you made a decision when you were 12 about finances that you're still living, but you don't have to process all that stuff. And I never actually did much of that as a therapist, which is interesting, before I found Access. But it's so cool to just go, okay, now what? Now I can choose. And I think that's one of my favorite tools and information is the idea that we actually have choice. What?
Yeah.
You mean?
I know, yeah.
Yeah. Huh? What? You mean I don't have to go to this school and get married and have these kids? And you mean I don't have to like these people or not like these people? Or wow. Yeah. And what else could I choose beyond the programming I got from my parents and my society and my school and my culture? Oh, none of that's real. Yeah. None of that is real. Anyway, that was huge for me. Amazing. So I'm talking a lot, and we have the wonderful Elena and Amy too. What are you all's favorite tools? What things do you have?
I can talk about me. So being a Mexican, you're trained to be addicted to drama and trauma and doing telenovela. And actually, one of my favorite tools is knowing that you don't have to do it. Like, it is a choice. You don't have to be as everyone else, even if it feels so real. And what is heavy is a lie and what is true is light. And it was so enlightening because telenovela and drama doesn't feel light at all. And so when I started doing Access, I have been listening to very old classes in the beginning. My questions were all, oh my God, my life is so terrible, fix me. And they told me, oh, is that light for you? And I was like, no. Okay, then it's a lie. Oh my God. And that gave me also so much choice regarding to addictions. I was addicted to perfection. I was addicted to, of course, drama. And I was always very afraid of being addicted to alcohol or cigarette because my father was using a lot of alcohol and cigarette. And then thinking it's a choice and you're not like destined.
Right.
Oh, it was so amazing. I think that's one that I still use when I start getting all this heaviness. It's like, oh, there's a lie here. Thank you. And then I can let it go.
Yes. Well, and you bring up something I'm so glad, which is that before Access, I always assumed that everybody else knew and I didn't, that the experts knew. And what I got, one of the things, the major things I got in Access is, the tagline is empowering you to know that you know. What do you mean? I know? I can know more than these other people? I can know what's right for me? And maybe it's not what right for them. And that's just been phenomenal for me because I've always been the odd bird. I've always been the weird one, the different one. And I think most people in Access have that same thing. I passed, I really looked normal. I did many of the things I was supposed to, but I was like, this is crazy. And this doesn't make sense to me. And, people had these strong opinions about things. And I was like, really? That matters? That's okay. It doesn't matter to me, but I think I'm supposed to have a strong opinion. So I wonder which opinion I could have. And then I got to Access and it was like, oh no, I know it's all bunk. I don't have to take a side. I don't have to align and agree or resist and react. So I think that's awesome. Thank you. Miss Amy, do you have a favorite tool or?
Well, first, I just kind of want to talk to like the energy of being depressed and like living in that place of where you really do feel like you're alone. And so like I lived that for like a good 5 years where I actually just every day was like, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to fucking be here. So when you're talking like to someone, like if you were, I was like, what would I say to myself? Like, if I was talking to me then,
Oh,
now,
cool.
what would I say to myself? And I'm like, if you told me then, like it was just a choice, I would have been like, like seriously, because it's like there's so much heaviness, there's so much depression, there's so much sadness, there's so much feeling so separate, so lost, so alone. To have someone turn around and just be like, oh, it's just a choice. It's like, but what it is a choice though. That's the thing. But what I didn't know was what Sue talked about was like, who does this belong to? Like that, like how much of that sadness and that depression and that feeling alone isn't yours. It's you picking up on everything going on around you and all the people around you and all the people you care about and the land, the earth, like everyone living on the planet. And I think when I went to I went to AA at 21, was the first time where I realized I wasn't alone. Because there was a bunch of people who all talked about the same things went on in their head that went on in mine, like feeling like they didn't belong, feeling like they didn't fit, feeling different all their life. So that was the first time where I went, oh, wow, there's other people in the world like me. Okay, I'm not alone. So I just think like if you can find anywhere, anyone to talk to, that also you might realize that you are not alone in what you're feeling, that other people in the world feel like that too. Like Elena just spoke to, like I didn't know that about Elena before, like the feelings she had before she found the tools of Access. Or Sue, I didn't know the stuff that they went through. Because we look at each other and we think, oh, you're good. You walk, you talk, you dress, you smile, you look good, but you've no idea what goes on in someone's head. and you've no idea what people feel on the inside. So I think if you can find anything at all where you talk to someone, or you can find any kind of a group of people, support group, whatever it is, you'll realize actually you're not the only one that feels like this. Um, and so AA was that for me for a while. But what happened with me with AA was, like Elena said, I was constantly in the problem. Like I was always then trying to just fix me because there was something wrong with me because I had this disease. And that only got me so far. Then it got me to a point where I still was where I would feel good for a day or two, and then I would feel like shit again, and then I'd be crying and going through this emotional pain again. So it was really when I met a friend of mine, Rachel O'Brien, and we went on a walk one day, and she had found the tools of access consciousness. And she was the first one who gave me this tool, like, who does this belong to? Where she just said, Amy, like, what's going on? Like, what's all this stuff you're carrying? And I was like, I know it's not mine. I just don't know what to do with it. And that's when she was like, you return it to sender. And I was like, but I don't want to, because I knew I was also carrying a lot of sadness from family members and from people I cared about. And I didn't want to give it back to them, And she was like, Amy, she was like, you can't heal something for someone else that's not yours to heal. That's theirs. And you can't keep trying to take this on because that's theirs and they have to deal with it in their way, in their own time. So I started to play with that too, like, who does it belong to? Like, I walked around for 3 days, and whenever I started to feel sad or heavy or feel like crying, I would just go, who does this belong to? Return to sender. And everything in my head was like, this is stupid, this is crazy, this will not work, there's no way this can work. But I just did it in a way. And I started to get so light and so spacious. And that's when I had kind of like the energy Sue was talking to when she had her first bar session, where I started to feel like nature became alive. And I started to see like the trees for the first time. And like the earth was like talking to me. And I was like, wow, were you always this beautiful? I was so like, the beauty of the world became alive. And I'd never had that before. Like, I was so in my head for so many years, drowning in this like sadness. And just this asking, who does this belong to, for 3 days, like, changed. Like, where, like Sue said, I just started to be like, wow, I'm more connected. And it was less where, when I went to AA, it was more connecting to people through the problem, like the feelings of sadness and not belonging. This was more like when I started to get my bars run too, it increased, and using who does it belong to, it was more like I started to feel more connected through the universe and the earth.
Cool.
And it would give me a different sense of, you're not alone.
That's beautiful, Amy. Thank you. Wow.
Can I just say something? Thank you so much for that, because that was something that I actually tapped into today. And it was like, that time when I had my bars run and I walked into a local park and the trees, and it was like my head was up for the first time looking around. And then I was like, oh, wow. Because for me, I had looked outside of me for people to support me, people. And there was some people there, but I never, ever thought that I could actually be supported by the earth. I never thought that. And when I acknowledged the trees are here, I was like, oh, the trees are really lovely, And it actually felt like the trees were doing this without me even doing the hugging or doing any of that. But actually, what if it wasn't just the support of people? What if have you just been seeking people? What if you could actually have the support of the earth?
Yes.
Thank you so much, because I love this conversation.
Wow.
I'm an earth freak. I love it. Yeah.
Well, and did you want to say something, Elena?
Yeah. Also, the other thing that is for me not being alone is having myself.
Yes.
Which I didn't have before. Like, I really wanted someone to acknowledge me, someone to validate me, and then I could exist. And suddenly it was like, I have me. And that is so amazing too.
I'm so glad you said that. That's where I was going to go too, because when you're, and it's still occasionally I buy into it. I mean, I'm an older single woman. I'm in my 70s. I go to class. Mostly the young people are together and, you know, they want to stay out and party, or it's just different. And there are not that many people, quote, my age, like that should really matter. And it mostly doesn't. But every once in a while I go, gosh, you know, I'm the only one here. And I know what I remember, there's a woman from China who keeps saying, I'm the only one from Asia who shows up in these classes. So it's easy to take the outside things, age or culture or whatever, and use that. One of my other favorite tools in Access is the question. And when I say, well, I'm alone, that's actually a conclusion. And so much of what I did before I got to Access was make conclusions like I'm alone because I'm in my 70s and blah, 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 and make them truths. They're not truths. And another tool, your point of view creates your reality. So the more I was going, I'm alone, the more I kept creating that in this reality's form of, gee, you know, I'm not going out to lunch with somebody or something. And then I just realized how insane that was with the bars. And I had similar experiences to you all with connecting to nature, connecting to the universe. And like you were saying, Elena, oh my gosh, connecting with myself and finding all the joy and happiness there, and connecting with my body. Because that's something in this reality I was never encouraged to do. It was like we existed from the head up, intellectual, everything was mind, 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 mind. And with Access, it was like, oh my gosh, I have a body. How cool is that? I wonder how much fun we could have today. So it's just what you were saying too, Sue. It's that changing from looking, all of you, from looking for outside validation or looking at the problem like Amy was talking about, to being with ourselves and choosing. And with that, you're never alone. Yeah.
Never. And thank you, because you just mentioned something. One of the things that I was really, really good at was story. I was really, really good at telling myself the biggest, fattest stories ever. And I would tell myself I was alone. I would tell myself that I was horrible. I would tell myself that I didn't fit in. And there's a tool in Access that we talk about: never tell or buy the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I was the biggest buyer and seller of my own story to myself.
Yes.
And to others. And to others. Yeah, I could be Mexican. I could be somewhere.
You know, as well, the other question that really helped me with that as well, with the stories that we tell ourselves, was like so because you spend so long like in the story, and you really do buy like, I'm fucked up, or like even like with mental illness or depression or anxiety, like there's so much in that where you're always looking to get fix the problem, like because mental illness has a stigma, right? It's not seen as a gift.
No, not
It's
at
not
all.
seen as something that's great about you. It's seen as something that's wrong about you. So now you have this thing that's wrong about you, like you have anxiety or you have a mental illness, so you're wrong. So when you're wrong, you have to try and fix it to be right again.
Right.
One of my favorite questions, and it doesn't make sense to your mind, like, but it's great because it turns everything around, is what's right about me that I'm not getting?
Yes.
And it's not looking for like the rightness of you. It's actually like, what if you're not fucked up? Like, and the underneath that, another way of asking that question too, which I really like as well, is what's the strength underneath this?
Yeah.
You know, like if you take something like anxiety and go, okay, what's the strength underneath this? You'll start to look at what you're maybe aware of rather than what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Because people with mental illness tend to have a lot of awareness, and they have a lot of awareness of their environment and the people around them, and are just missing tools to actually get to what the capacity and the gift is, instead of using it against yourself.
Absolutely. Before I got to Access, I worked at a psychiatric hospital, and we used to have this thing called the identified patient. So Johnny would come in and the family would come in and they'd go, oh, Johnny's the problem. He has anxiety. He's depressed. He's addicted to alcohol. And what was always true, I can't remember one incident, was that the family was using him as a scapegoat, and he being an aware being was taking all of it, being the problem child to try to help his family. And they didn't want to look at what was going on with them, how dysfunctional they were, so they made it all Johnny's fault. And I think that happens so much with people who are anxious or depressed. And then these tools can really make such a difference for getting people out of it. Because pre-Access, it was, even though we were aware of what was going on, there really weren't the tools to do the kinds of work that Access allows us to do, the facilitation, to really get people to see what was going on, to be aware. Because there was all this blame, shame, and all of that kind of stuff, and for Access, there's a distractor implants, and you don't have to buy into any of them. You can just be aware. And it's generally so, like you said, Amy, it's so different from what you actually believe is going on or what the problem is, all of that. So that's really cool.
And I just think that's one of the biggest gifts of Access bars and getting your bars run, is that it does actually kind of almost like it does clear out all the crap that you've been taking on from everyone else. And like Elena says, gives you access to you,
Yes,
to the goodness of you, the truth of you.
Absolutely.
Something I would love also to share, if people have never saw your book. One of the greatest gifts of that book is the last chapter, where you explain what judgment is and what things are judgment. And for like my major surprise is all the should haves, all the you have to, all the you should are judgments. And it was like, oh my God. And it gives such a freedom to think, oh, this is a judgment. I don't have to do anything I shouldn't. I don't have, this should is just a lie. That is like, oh my God. And it gives you this space where you can choose different. You don't have to do whatever is expected of you, even by you.
Yes. And the book is Right Recovery for You. But thank you for bringing that up, Elena. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and the thing that we've all discovered or came about after I'd been doing Right Recovery for a couple of years is actually the primary addiction, the thing that people really distract themselves with. And you can be addicted to anxiety and depression and all kinds of things. Perfectionism is this addiction to judgment and the wrongness of self. And it really ties in with what you all have been saying, like when Amy was talking about AA, and it's all focused on the problem. Where are you wrong? And that's actually before you get to alcohol or trauma drama or food or any of those things. It's that main addiction to judgment and the wrongness of ourselves that the culture, the societies, as far as I can see all over the world, encourage. Because if you're wrong, if you think you're wrong, if you're judging yourself, you're very controllable. If you know that you're an amazing gift to the world, that you're unique, that you can know what you know, people can't control you as easily. Institutions can't control you as easily. And you know you're never alone. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things to come out of it for me.
I love that. And you know what you just reminded me of? In that book, the Right Recovery for You book, there's a part where it talks about being predictable.
Yes.
And that for me, right, was something that I was trying to do for, I will say, probably up to like only a couple of years ago. I was addicted to trying to be the same. And it was like, if I be the same as them, I'll be okay.
Yes.
And what Amy said is, as you get your bars run and you get more free, right, you start to access, as Elena said, more of you. right? You start to get to know you. And then what actually shows up is that you're not predictable.
Right.
Because you're being you. So now I'm not predictable. So sometimes I get to kind of see where people are like, what do we even do with her? You know what I mean? And I'm like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm not, you know? But it's like, what if we were willing to be that, you know, like in the world, be that difference? And like, how much more fun is it when you're around people that are being them? How much more ease is it? And like when somebody said to me, just be you, it used to really annoy me at the beginning because I was like, I've no idea who I am. I've no idea. I've built this image. I've, you know, built it so well, you know, and I put everything, blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then somebody was like, be you. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I supposed to do now? Am I supposed to break all of this? And then it's like, I'm here naked, raw. What am I supposed to do? And the more I chipped away at that image, the more I started to knock it out of the park, the more I started to notice that people were like, oh, hi, Sue. And we'd like sit down or, you know, whatever it was. And it was so much more ease in my body. I didn't have to put the face on. I didn't have to, you know, put the dress up, you know, that image and hide me. Because it was super, for me to hide me was a super struggle. And that's where I knew that I wasn't living, I was leaving. And the more I allowed myself to actually show up as me, and yeah, there was a massive amount of vulnerability. And that for me was an ask of mine. Every single day I would ask, universe, show me vulnerability. Show me what it is to be vulnerable. Because I knew if I was willing to be vulnerable and surrender, I knew that I was going to get more of me.
Cool. Very cool. Well, and that's the thing. We don't know who we are. We're often just this conglomeration of everything was projected on us that we were supposed to be, because most of us got shut down early on. Don't ask so many questions. Oh, no. That's not how Smiths act. When we're in this position, this is how we act. This is how little girls act. This is how boys act. This is who you're supposed to be. Smile. Yeah. So
the identity. The identity, and you talk about that in the Right Recovery for You book about, you know, identity and like how then we put everything into that identity so that people are okay and comfortable that they know us.
Yes.
And then it's like, but it's like, hey, this is not really me, but I'm just doing this because it's comfortable for everyone. But it was uncomfortable for me.
Well, and that's one of the things I think that's such a huge contribution. That's a weird word to use this way, but for people feeling alone. Because if you're not you, you're going to feel alone. If you're presenting an image to the world, if you're being this for your mom and your family, if you're being this as the good employee, your friend or whatever, and it's not you, that you is somewhere going, I really am by myself. I can't even show up as me because they get mad or it doesn't fit the box or whatever.
That's brilliant what you just said there. You just said when you're not being you, you will feel like you're not alone. I think
you are alone.
When you're not being you, you are alone. So you also speak in the book. And I'm so grateful for Right Recovery for You, as well as the tools of access consciousness, because access, like getting my bars run has been amazing. Like for the last 8 years, every week I get my bars run. It's been incredible. But I wrote a post yesterday, actually, how I noticed that when I'm around when I'm in social events and I'm around people and I'm around groups of people, even access classes, Marilyn, you kind of spoke to it earlier, like I feel weird. I feel like it's conflictual. One part of me wants to be around people and mingle and chat, and then the other part to me is like, oh, I don't belong here. I'm not in the group. I'm not part of any clique. Like I'm not part of. That comes up, right? I feel weird and awkward and all that stuff, right? And one of the things I started to look at was we're always looking for where we fit and where we belong.
Mhm.
And one of the things you talk about a lot in the Right Recovery for You book is the antidote to addiction is being you.
Yes.
And one of the things that creates a lot of our addictive behaviors is when we're trying to be normal, we're trying to fit, but we're not normal. We're different. Each are really different.
Yes.
And we're all so different, yet here we are, all very different people and beings and bodies. And then we try to all fit into this box. And then, of course, you're going to want to drink or take something or do something, get on your phone, do something to ease that discomfort in trying to make yourself fit into this like little tiny box. So one of the things I started to look at recently was like, wow, like everywhere I'm still trying to fit and find the place where I belong. That's usually what takes me back then to the judgment, to
Yes.
the want to drink or want to overwork or whatever it is. And even in relationship where, oh, I fit now because I have a relationship. And then that works for a while and then that doesn't work. So it's like the sorry, I got distracted by the comments. The more I can just embrace, Amy, you're different and you don't fit,
Yes.
the easier it becomes. Because even in AA, I didn't fit there either. And then I got to Access, but I don't fit in Access either. I don't fit anywhere.
Right. And you don't have to.
So it's very easy, no matter how long you've had these tools or whether you're just finding these tools or whatever, it's very easy to, no matter where you go or what you do, to always feel like you're fucked up and you
Yes.
don't belong and you
Yeah.
don't fit. But if you could actually get, there's a greatness in that. And I don't know if you speak about it in this book or if it's another book where you mention, or another Access book where someone mentions all the great people in the world who made a big difference in the world.
Yes, that's in the book. Yeah. The humanoids.
Yeah, they did.
Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi. Yes.
Did any of them fit?
No.
None of them really like were fit into any like mold or any like image of anything. They were just willing to be so different, right?
Yeah. They were willing to live their uniqueness. And when you're trying to fit, you have to cut off your uniqueness. And we're all that unique gift. So I think everybody can resonate with what you were talking about, Amy. At some point we look around and go, what? I know, it's just like, ah! And that's when we go back into the judgment or trying to find an identity. And that's another way that we really, it's so counterintuitive, but looking for an identity, whether it's, I'm Jewish or a Catholic or Italian or Croatian or Indian, or I'm an alcoholic or I'm an overeater. People are looking for some way to define themselves. And that is back to taking themselves out of being them. And that, in a weird way, we're looking to join and connect up, but that also creates that sense of aloneness, of being alone, because you're not that.
That was the thing I looked at. I was like, wow, so I always felt like I didn't fit or I didn't belong. And then I drank and did drugs to try and fit in with the group. But in that, I never felt so alone.
Right.
And
Exactly.
that's what brought on major depression, anxiety, psychosis
Yeah.
for me, was that actually feeling like, wow, I did all these things to fit and now I'm never so alone.
Yeah.
You know?
And I do want to say, Right Recovery for You is a specialty class in Access. It's all interconnected. And we've been talking about Being You, a great book by Dr. Dane here, Being You, Changing the World. Really, you want to start with Access. Get your bars run, read that book. It's fabulous. Because it's...
And Dane, if you watch some videos with Dane as well, like go to his YouTube. Dane, I think, was one of the first like invitations for me to be like, wow, like you can be that different. Like you can be you and like be that different and not actually be controlled by other people's judgments of you. He was a great invitation for me to be like, wow, just like step into being you, Amy. As Sue said, I have no idea what that is.
Right.
Be as weird as you are. Like, it's okay, because the other way didn't work.
Right.
So now we're here.
Yeah, and thanks for that as well. And also what I will say is that it is great, that if you do, have like even one person that you can be around, I don't care, like whether it's a kid, a baby, a dog, an animal, it doesn't matter. Like I love being around my dog, and like even get one person or one animal that you can be around and be you and practice being you there, because it's like, and if that person has an allowance for you and are actually, I'm going to say it like this, if they're willing to celebrate you and not tolerate you, then, because that's something that I really became aware of how much that I was looking to be tolerated in the world. And when I started to look at that, it was only recently, by the way, I started to look at, and the same with what Amy is saying about the groups and, trying for someone to tolerate me. And then I would make myself tolerable, right? And now it's like, well, you know what? If you're not going to celebrate me, and that doesn't mean you have to have a big party, or you can, I'm open to it. But like, if you're not going to celebrate me, I'm going to move. I'm going to go somewhere else. So get somebody, if you have someone that you can just ring up, or someone that you can, and it doesn't have to be somebody physically. If you do have someone physically near you, great. But if you don't, you can ring me. You can ring me. I won't judge you.
Yeah.
You can show up and I'll be like, brilliant. I'm delighted that you're here. And how does it get any better?
How does it get any better? Really?
Yeah.
I just want to add that something that I think I am sure that is a gift of access is getting to acknowledge the magnificence and not only what is wrong. Like I used to be totally cool with someone telling me what was wrong with me, but when someone told me what was great, it was like and learning to receive that and enjoy that and acknowledge that, oh my God, that has been such a, so it's not only celebrating you, but also giving you this permission, I don't know how to call it, to acknowledge you.
Yes, acknowledging yourself, because you can create and be all these amazing things, but if you're still thinking, oh, I'm just so bad and fucked up and everything, then you can't live the gifts of acknowledging yourself. I think that's what it really is living the gift of acknowledging all the cool stuff about you, how amazing you are, everything you create, and not focusing on what you're not or you don't have or any of that, which we're all taught to do in this reality. Compare yourself, compete. How can you compete or compare if you're a unique being? You can't. There's nobody like you in the world. Nobody. So all of that goes out the window, which it's been a huge gift for me. Absolutely. Well, anyway, this has been wonderful. Does anybody have a last tool or question or something they'd like to talk about?
Just to let people know that Access Consciousness has some amazing information, tools, videos. Like this month, we've been like, there's free access bars for mental health and awareness clinics, where people have them set up all around the world, in all countries. Look up, go to the accessconsciousness.com website, and you'll be able to search these, put in your country and see what's happening in your country.
Yes.
There is amazing stuff. Dr. Dane here, Cassie just put in a link to Dr. Dane's Tour of Consciousness, which is a video series that is free. And he delivers them to your email like on a regular basis. So you get like a video from him. He's speaking to whatever is up in the world at the moment, and maybe it'll resonate with you. Maybe it'll actually be something that you can add to your life that will give you more of you, because really that's what Gary and Dane, are looking. They're looking to see you. They're looking to have you in the world. So come
Not
on,
to have you agree with them or resist and react or make them a guru. It's really about everything, you knowing what you know to be true and having you.
Yes.
So thank you all. And thank you, Sue and Elena and Amy, for your contribution to this.
Thank you, Marilyn.
It was a pleasure and a joy to be on. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye.
Bye.